Welcome to the fantastic world of Hanna-Barbera, a celebration of Bill Hanna, Joe Barbera, and the thousands of people past and present who have shared in their entertainment tradition. Here we go! And now your host, Greg Ehrbar.
Thank you, Chris Anthony. Welcome to the fantastic world of Hanna-Barbera. I'm Greg Ehrbar, also host of Pop Culture Classics. Today, George Feltenstein of Warner Archive comes back to tell us about an exciting new release. First of all, I want George, because I never get the title right, please, George, share what your official title is.
Warner Brothers Discovery Library Historian.
Yes, and what a library historian George is. Today, we're going to talk about a beloved Hanna-Barbera classic that has been meticulously restored, Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines. We have stopped That Pigeon, and he is in a Blu-ray. Was this a long process putting together this?
It wasn't a 3-year process like Huckleberry Hound. It was a normal process of pulling the negatives and getting everything together. Our people were able to get from the animation department here at Warner Brothers, which, digested certain portions of the Hanna-Barbera archives. They had original cells to reference for color. They put a lot of work into making sure that this looked and sounded as good as possible. This series is, in some ways, I think it's even more popular than Wacky Races. Wacky Races did very well for us, but people were asking for Dastardly and Muttley, and when they say this is what we want, we try to come through.
Yeah, Dastardly and Muttley are almost a franchise unto themselves, especially in Japan. I remember when this was on CBS and Kellogg's had a fan club that you could join with a certificate and everything, and you get photos of the characters and all of that. One of the many astonishing things about it is there's only 2 actors doing all the voices.
Right. And I think for me personally, I grew up being a Paul Winchell fan of the highest order because I used to love to watch Winchell Mahoney Time. And my awareness as a child of him being a voice artist kind of happened after that. He may have been doing them before, but it was really until, I'd say, a year or two after there was no longer a Winchell Mahoney Time, that I suddenly noticed as a child that Paul Winchell's voice was everywhere and how talented he was. He was so great at doing so many different kinds of voices, and a brilliant man also in actual life. He's been gone for quite some time, and yet he stays alive. All these great artists do through their work because it lives on from generation to generation. And I know people who've shown Dastardly and Muttley to their kids, as they did with Wacky Races and several of the other series. Their parents were infants when these shows were on, and now they're grown adults with their own kids, and the kids love these shows.
Yeah, they hold up so incredibly well. I mean, they always, of course, want these shows to last, but the prescience of how they still work, especially Dastardly and Muttley, which is, as Hanna-Barbera could do so well, done in the classic style of Tom and Jerry, in that it is a chase, but it has so many variations to it.
And I think, and you can verify this for me as a true Hanna-Barbera expert that you are, I think Muttley is a continuation of Sniffles from Quick Draw McGraw, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and Sniffles was on whatever side gave him a dog biscuit.
Right. I mean, for me, I remember as a kid, when this came along, I thought, oh, that's just like Sniffles.
Yeah. Snuffles. Yeah, it's Snuffles. I should know this because it's one of my wife's favorite characters is Snuffles.
Yeah, and they used the same kind of humor.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Dastardly and Muttley. It's a very funny, witty show.
You know what else is interesting, getting back to Paul Winchell, is that like the great voice actors of today and yesterday, there are certain go-to tones that they have, and Dick Dastardly is his villain voice, but it is nothing like the similar sounding Gargamel voice.
Right.
Gargamel is through and through. I mean, he's a moron and he ultimately trips up himself. Dastardly is more of a Captain Hook kind of, hopeless villain who has no support. And the character of Muttley, I'm thinking, goes back to the Huckleberry Hound show because Don Messick does the voice.
Right.
And of course, it was Precious Pup. Mumbly, I'm assuming because of the Heater Quigley ownership and all of that. Then it became Muttley again in Laugh Olympics.
Right, which we just put out not long ago.
In fact, there's one of my favorites is there's an interview with Muttley's mother.
Yeah, I mean, they were so clever with that show, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to restore it and bring it back, and it's been very well received, and I expect that people will be very happy with this new release.
And also, we should mention Don Messick does almost all the other voices. He's Clunk, the guy who speaks gibberish. He could do that so well. His giant ants and stuff were always so great. And Zilly, who's the sort of the Don Knotts kind of.
Yes.
And the chemistry of those just work really well. I can't wait to see this because the backgrounds are just like Wacky Races. They have this stylized feel to them. The planes, which I think between Iwo Takamoto and Jerry Eisenberg, they have the kind of inventiveness that the Wacky Races cars had.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned them because fortunately, and these are to be treasured now, we have both of those incredible late artists. Their commentary that was recorded for DVD on one of the episodes. And what a gift to have their voices speak to new generations.
Yeah.
And as we were going through this, because these come from the original negatives and the old masters were done from prints, we never use prints unless there's nothing else available. But that hardly ever happens. They look very different, but they also are missing frames. And so the commentaries don't sync with our new masters properly because there's more frames in the negative. So as a result, we've had to provide the commentaries with their original standard definition, overly brightened video images, but the commentaries are there. And that's the important thing. And you get to hear from the people responsible for giving the show the look that it has.
That's an important point, too. And you mentioned it a bit earlier, is that the artwork was used to make this restoration not look brighter or have heavier reds or whatever, because it just has to look colorful. It looks just the way the artists can see.
Exactly. We can't get these on the classic Warner Brothers cartoons and the classic MGM cartoons. They're almost impossible to find, but we do have from Hanna-Barbera some key stills, I should say cells, that tell us what the colors are supposed to be. And they were saved specifically for that purpose, for reference down the line, how these characters are supposed to look, what the colors are supposed to be. I mean, we're blessed to have that. And the fact that they thought ahead to preserve that, I think they learned their lesson after leaving MGM, Bill and Joe. They had nothing to show for all their work. And some people walked away with stuff, but they weren't like that. But from their own company, they always had an archival sensibility, I think, based on what we've been fortunate enough to still have.
Yeah, I mean, like Walt Disney, they had the prescience to do the early series in color, even though the broadcast until the mid-'60s, and a lot of houses even later, people weren't seeing them in color.
Yeah, Lord knows that I didn't. We didn't have a color television when a lot of these shows were on. I used to complain, what color is Bugs Bunny to my mother, when I was a little kid, which is really awful thing for a little kid to say when your parents are struggling to get by. Like, why don't we have a color television? But I think they forgave me later.
It was the thing for a kid to want in the 60s. It's hard for anyone who didn't experience that to understand. When you went into a store We went into Sears and saw
Right.
Gilligan's Island on the screen. Gilligan's wearing red. Skipper's wearing blue. Ginger's wearing a gown that's spangly. None of it showed much in black and white because those shows were designed for color televisions.
That's right. The colors are so catching because they wanted everything to be really colorful and take full advantage of the new technology.
The thing is that even if you saw them in color on Cartoon Network or various other things, and MeTV Toons is showing them now as part of the House of Hanna-Barbera, which is great, but those are not the restored ones that you're going to be having.
Absolutely. And also, you have to take into account when you're watching things, whether it's broadcast television, satellite, cable, streaming, everything is so compressed. Mm-hmm. The size of the file, by the time you get it on your television screen, you're losing so much, regardless of any of those modes of watching it on television. Nothing delivers the best quality the way a disc can, and we're very fortunate that that's the case.
I think I should say that MeTV Toons does have some of the things that you've provided and that Warner has provided that are enhanced things, but because of the compression, because of the nature of TV,
it's just different. Yeah. I mean, one of the things we do, which I think is really important, is we clean and fix film damage. But if there was dust on an animation cell or a fingerprint on an animation cell, we don't change the animation. We only fix the film defects. Mm-hmm. So if there was one frame that had a speck of dust that was picked up onto the film by the animation camera, we want this to look as close to what they completed on the negative as possible. And because this is done by hand, it's done by human beings, you have to know the difference between the animation and film damage. So scratches, splices, any kind of film-related damage, warping, those are all the things we fix, but we don't change what was on the cell. And I think that's really important because you lose the organic quality.
Yeah.
And being able to see them with this quality, you couldn't do when they first came out. And the television sets were 27 inches if we had a good one, It's a very exciting time. And MeTV Toons is a wonderful partner for our company because it gives a lot of people the opportunity to see so much wonderful animation, not just from us, but from other people as well. And it's a great introduction if you really don't know about some of these characters before you plunk down your $25 to own them forever. Experience them first and see if you like it.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that more people now, I think in 2026, because of various streaming outlets as well as broadcast on MeTV Toons, and then of course there's Cartoon Network, there's Boomerang on cable and satellite, there is more of an opportunity now to take in television and classic theatrical animation than I think there's ever been. And the fact that it's so abundant is a dream come true to people like us who love these things. We're delighted as a company to be consistently working on new projects all the time for the older productions in the library.
We don't necessarily have to mention anything specifically because we are not permitted to, but be assured that there are Hanna-Barbera things in the hopper.
Oh, yeah, without question. Very exciting ones.
So stay tuned and you will see these things be announced. This year, stuff will be coming out, which is very, very exciting. But already, what's come out, I've actually been really savoring the Huckleberry Hound series because as a series, it's never been in this form before, all 4 seasons all together. So it's nice that they're back.
And it was frustrating to me working here but not being involved to see Huckleberry Hound Show, Yogi Bear Show, McGill Gorilla Show released just as segments, I just couldn't understand the thinking, and I wasn't going to be hurtful or insulting to colleagues, but I can't even understand what the thinking was. One of the problems that we encountered on Huckleberry Hound was there was such an enormous strain on human resources going through unmarked inventory items, trying to put together the best that we could. There were a lot of pieces where we found picture and no audio. There were cases where we found audio and no picture. And worst of all, we found material that had such bad vinegar syndrome deterioration that it couldn't be run through. It had already, quote unquote, gone. No one knew about vinegar syndrome really until the late 80s. So we have to be grateful for what remains. All of our original camera negatives are kept in a wondrous cold vault that protects them with incredible care. And with all the material that we have like that, they constantly go through the shelves and the cans and check everything on a cycle. There are millions of cans of negatives. So it is a testament to our archival preservation people that everything is taken care of the way it is now, because it's a state-of-the-art facility. And then we keep duplicates all over the country in case there's a terrible disaster of some sort.
It makes perfect sense, but it never occurred to me that on a much more technical level, it's kind of like milk and bread. But, you do have to do that because it is a thing with a time frame on it.
Well, and the other thing about it is we'll have, let's say, a 65 millimeter reel of the camera negative of Ben-Hur on the same shelf as an episode of Trollkins.
As you should.
Because it's just all barcoded. It's kind of like the way Amazon stores stuff in their warehouses, which I've seen on television. There's no organization on how things are on a shelf. They have a location. We know where to find them. And it's very funny to me sometimes because, I'll be looking and seeing, one of Christopher Nolan's films and the negative is next to an episode of F Troop. There's the enormity of our holdings is overwhelming.
I still love the fact that Trollkins is on right next to Ben-Hur. I just love that. But
I've pointed that out many times when people come into the cold vault. You can't stay in there unless you're wearing like two parkas. You can't stay in there more than 5-10 minutes because it's freezing. The whole point of it is that's what precludes deterioration. And this is all safety film. Of course, we don't keep any nitrate on the lot. When we're working with nitrate, we're not allowed to have more than 90 minutes worth of film on the lot at any given time. So if we're working on a nitrate film that's, let's say, 125 minutes, we have to store other reels in another facility in town and then have to move things out of the facility to bring new nitrate in. So it's very time consuming. Fortunately, with Hanna-Barbera, everything is safety film. And if it's cared for properly and is not having vinegar syndrome and has protection, we're in luck. With Dastardly and Muttley, the results speak for themselves. I think the episodes look great. I think people are going to be really happy with the release. And I also want to mention that the suggested retail price is $24.98. We have a problem that we can't do anything about where certain retailers are charging over list price. I experienced this myself. There was a disc I wanted to buy, a 4K disc, and a rather large retailer was charging $2 more than the list price. I bought the item because I really wanted it, but I saw, well, at least I know they're not just doing it to Warner Brothers. They're doing it to everybody. And once the big people do it, then the little people match what the big people are doing. So there's some unfortunately elevated pricing at a time where people need to be able to afford things. Yeah. With affordability being so problematic, it's a challenge, but I'm grateful to be able to share that all of our animation releases have performed exceptionally well. much to the surprise of some of my colleagues. A lot of people were kind of making jokes about the new Fred and Barney show and like, what is this? I've never heard of it. And it sold really well. And we've gotten a lot of positive response on social media. And I remember when that show came on as a kid, I was so thrilled that anything new was being done with the Flintstones.
Me too. I could not wait for that to come on, and I took it for what it was. It's not the original series. It's not Alan Reed. It's Saturday morning, so it's aimed at kids. It's very strange and far out, but it's funny in this bizarre way, and it looks really, really good.
Beautiful. And just to show you what is involved, we were remastering a lot of Hanna-Barbera series just for DVD in the Warner Archive's leaner years. And we couldn't do the new Fred and Barney show because the interpositives were missing footage. So it was only when we went back to the original negatives that we were able to build the shows properly. And that's how we have the new recent release, I should say. It's been out for a couple of months. I also think this is a great opportunity for me to say thank you to all the people listening to your podcast for supporting our releases, for supporting the Warner Archive collection, because the more we have the support of the fans, the more we can bring them what they want. And their lists are huge. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and I just hope we can keep doing it.
Yeah, sometimes in our day-to-day lives, we feel like we can't make any kind of a difference and our voice doesn't count. And that's true in a lot of ways. But when it comes to these releases, if you get them in advance, search the kind of websites that you depend on, because the prices vary, as we said. But try to pre-order it or get it within, a couple of weeks, because that's what the company needs to see, that there's a demand. And in doing that, that opens the door for more. And so far, it's worked.
Yes, absolutely. I've been able to get projects greenlit more quickly by showing initial sales results.
It's so thrilling, especially as somebody who so loves the fact that Hanna-Barbera is beloved by so many people who grew up with it, but is being embraced by new generations. To hear these are doing well, that's celebration.
Well, and I've believed in all of them. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There are multiple generations that have loved these characters, and to see them treated with the kind of care, I think it is wonderful that our company has embraced with great, not only respect, but allegiance to the legacy of Bill and Joe.
Yeah.
That makes me deeply proud, because I think before I loved anything as a little toddler, the first thing I really loved was Hanna-Barbera. The Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear and the Flintstones, Quick Draw McGraw, that was it. And I'm talking about preschool. This is like earliest memories, stuffed animals in the house of Hanna-Barbera characters and playing with the building boulders like pebbles,
Yeah, we had that, and we had the Flintstone play set, the Bedrock play set.
Of course.
So this is how it lives on and continues to go and grow. And you're just doing so much wonderful stuff. Thank you so much on behalf of all of us for all the stuff that you've done and you're going to be doing. It's bringing so much joy to all of us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about Dastardly and Muttley. And I look forward to the next opportunity where we can celebrate the fantastic world of Hanna and Barbera together.
Thank you, George. And thank you all for listening. We have some Facebook pages you can take a look at and send in comments. But most of all, I'm just so grateful that you all listen and enjoy this with us. And until next time, bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed the fantastic world of Hanna and Barbera with Greg Ehrbar. Please join us again, and many thanks for listening.